Hey there, everybody. Thank you for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'm looking at Batman Black and White Volume 4. This is something I picked up in a Second and Charles trip. Something that's I'm doing far too frequently, I think, but I have fun. So I have the first two Batman Black and White volumes. The first one was just a really kind of groundbreaking thing in my mind. It made a big it was very impactful on me in my youth because I don't think I'd really seen a lot of the artists that I like in black and white before, and that changed a lot for me. So I haven't I don't know who's in volume three. I think there's been one after this that has more contemporary guys like Daniel Warren Johnson. So I'll have to try and find the third one because I wasn't aware of that. But as always, they get the best of the best artists, and none of the stories in here really stood out to me as anything stellar. A lot of them I'd read like half of it, and it's kind of okay. This is just like a standard. I don't know, Batman's gonna win at the end of it, so I'm just enjoying the art in this. But there's so much art to enjoy, different things to point out, worth looking at, different artists to celebrate. So this one's cool. It's written by Chip Kidd, the famous book cover designer, and then drawn by Michael Cho. I have a book from Michael Cho called Shoplifters. Really enjoyed the art, and really enjoy the art in this as well. One thing that I really like that he's doing here, something that I really want to try, is to get this second gray tone instead of working on the computers, obviously just inking on a piece of vellum or printing out the black in blue line and inking on top of that or something, and then scanning it in and layering it. I really like that for a gray tone. If you're gonna do like a black, white, and gray, I think that's a really cool look rather than doing on the computer. And it's definitely something that I've got in mind and I want to try because you can get like a color put in, but with those brushy look, the dry brush look on them, so it feels more tactile, but it kind of has the cell shading animated type of look to it as well. I must have seen this at some point because I use this set of panels here in my basic drawing class. On one of my assignments, I have the students do a two-tone drawing where they're doing black, white, and a mid-gray, and they're not allowed to put outlines around things, so it'd be like this. They just have to have shadows and shapes. And so I use these panels here to show them that and show how the white bleeds into the white on Superman's neck, and how even though there are lines here, they're representing shadows. So that's cool to see that. I don't know where I got that from because I don't think I've ever read that story. So it's cool to see that and know who the artist is. I don't know that I had known who the artist on that was either. I'd probably misattribute it to Darwin Cook. Here's a Neil Adams story done entirely in pencil. I'm not the hugest Neil Adams fan, actually, but I mean, he's obviously a legend and someone I've got to respect, and the certain things of his that I like. It's really cool to see his pencils. It's a bit strange in a black and white book that he didn't just go to ink, but it's cool. And I've definitely seen like this page, especially going around online, people doing inking samples on it. So that's fun too, and seeing different, like Scott Williams ink it and someone else inked it, I think. Seeing different styles over top of it, I think that's a cool thing to show people. This story here is illustrated by Joe Quinones, who's someone that I really like what he does with color, but it's like he just took what he did in color and then like dropped the color convert. Like he had a 8-page Batman story and they said, "Hey, do you want to be in Batman Black and White?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure. I'll just convert it all to grayscale." And from what I've seen of the volume 5, there's more of this type of stuff. To me, as someone who is especially like in love with what they did in the first Batman Black and White, and who, when I see black and white artwork, I really want to appreciate like the ink of it all. This seems just like a cop out to me. This doesn't seem like a true Batman Black and White story, even though I really do like Joe Quinones' art. I almost grabbed his run on Howard the Duck with Chip Zdarsky when I picked this up, because I really do enjoy his stuff. And what he did on Dial H for Hero was really awesome with all the style swapping. But to me, like, I don't know, this super over rendered computer style stuff just in a black and white book, I feel kind of ripped off. Like, I want to see what you can do with black and white, or, like with tones and stuff like that. So a perfect example of that is Sean Gordon Murphy, who's just absolutely one of my favorite. And here in this story, you see, like, this is, to me, my opinion, a proper, like, you're doing a black and white book, or these ones that Marvel does now that's like black, white, and red, or black, white, and gold. I see too much of this kind of stuff when I peek at those. Um, so I don't get them because I want this kind of stuff. And if you're going to do red, then you have like a flat spot red or something. But there's something about just actual physical materials and sticking to the black and white and the grays that you can create with these type of tools that just, to me, it's just so beautiful. As a kid, I always wanted my books in color, and I think probably one of the reasons that original Batman black and white really grabbed my attention is the first time that I can remember where, even though I was an artist my whole life who wanted to be a penciler, and then I wanted to ink and color my own work as well. Like I always liked colored work, and now I'm the opposite. I really like black and white, and Sean Gordon Murphy's someone. I wish all his work would be published in black and white editions. This is done by DC, so the printing quality is not that great. Some of the artists appear to have handled their own files better than others. But I mean, there will be straight lines in there where I can literally just see a series of dots, and it's not even a certain thin line. And my eyes are still kind of messed up from having LASIK too. So the fact that I'm still seeing it means it's pretty bad. So I think all of these artists who are beautiful ink slingers have kind of been ripped off by the poor quality reproduction. I don't think anyone's lines are getting made thicker or anything like that. But with someone like Sean Murphy, who's got some dry brush and stuff, I just really feel like it probably could look even better. I do like that it's on gloss paper. I could see an argument for putting it on not gloss paper, but with Batman, I don't know, something about the blackest blacks that you can get by being on the gloss paper is nice. They're really starting this book with an all-star lineup, and then they have like one or two all-stars per issue after that, but the first couple issues are just boom, boom. So you have Chris Samnee, who's just one of our modern masters, I think. He really takes the kind of milk kniff, really thick, heavy shadows, big brush strokes, impeccable designs in each composition. So anytime I see Chris Samnee's stuff, I'm excited about. He's another person that, even though I've seen like Robert Kirkman's Firepower that he's on right now, I just got the first volume of that in hardcover. Beautiful with the colors and everything, but God, I would just love to see almost all his stuff printed in black and white. This one's cool. This is by J.G. Jones. So Travis Charest and J.G. Jones were probably the first two people I saw doing like super photorealistic ink wash work back when I was a teenager, and that had a huge influence on me. I was a big fan of ink wash for a long time. This is a way that if you're going to work in black and white and you want a variety of tones, it feels analog to me, at least. It doesn't have all the weird digital stuff, and so I like this better. But now that I'm older, I do prefer something more like the Chris Samnee or the Sean Gordon Murphy stuff, where you're just using like what pure blacks can do to achieve your grays, like with the dot tones or dry brush and things like that. But there's still always going to be a place in my heart for really realistic, or even non-realistic, but for ink wash in general. It was a big part of who I was earlier as an artist, and a big tool I used. But I do think now that I'm older, there's like a lack of confidence almost in it. Like I wasn't trusting my drawings and designs. And I'm not saying J.G. Jones's drawings and designs aren't great, but just that I wasn't trusting my own. So I was like overdoing it with all of the realism. But yeah, I still, now at 40, I look at this and I think, oh, that's cool. I want to go do an ink wash drawing. So that's fun to see. Brings back some memories of like black, white, and red. That's probably the first black, white, and red book I saw, and that was all ink washes. This is Rafael Grampa, or Raphael. I guess it depends where he's from. Love his work. I've seen a couple things by him. I think he did a book with Frank Miller, and just illustrations here and there. I haven't seen many comics, but man, his style is so cool. And he's someone else that really commits to like, look, this is a black and white book. I'm going to stick with ink. And really cool combination of like these clean, crispy lines with like these really, really rough dry brush moments. And that textural back and forth is really awesome. And then probably it looks like drawing on top of this with some white ink as well. So this is someone who really obviously loves ink. Really, really, really unique style going on here, and man, he's somebody I would like to see a lot more from. I don't know if he's just slow or if he does a lot of illustration work or what. Raphael Albuquerque, he's someone who has a rougher style and uses the ink washes, but he's someone I don't like when he uses the ink wash. Like on the here you can see there's like this page with the ink wash, and to me like the image kind of gets lost in the wash. Like it either needs to be like that flat gray like the Michael Cho, or like a full range of values. I think for it to work like in panels like this, it just kind of muddies it up. And then when I see his work without the ink wash, it's so striking and so beautiful in the way he's using the dry brush to kind of create like a gray tone. And this one's really well produced. Like all of these little scratchy marks there produce really well. So I don't know. That's somebody. I guess there's maybe some ink wash up here, but I just like his work a lot better when it's stark like that. It's always kind of back and forth. I'm blanking on this dude's name. It's a really interesting style, Alex Nino. But really hard to look at in black and white. This is, and again, there's like this ink wash. Kind of reminds me of Cam Kennedy, like with this really blocky style and like a second layer of color put in lighter. But I don't know. This looks to me like an artist that probably needs to be seen in color. I really like the stylization of it all, but it's just kind of hard to look at, I think. There's a couple of other artists in here that didn't stand out enough, and this is probably a long video, so I'm skipping over some things. Lee Bermejo, he was probably like the third guy that I fell in love with when I was into the super realistic ink wash stuff. Another guy that came out of Wildstorm, so I'm sure he was influenced by being around Travis Charest. But he took it into a more angular style. When I was young and trying to make it in comics, I spent a lot of time on the Wildstorm message boards because I wanted to work at Wildstorm. That was like my number one goal. Me and my buddy at the time, Travel Foreman, met on those boards, and we were both like trying so hard to get into Wildstorm. And Travel actually did. I remember the day that he emailed me and said, "Dude, my grandma just told me that I got a call from some guy named Jim Lee." But the point of all of that is Lee Bermejo was really active on the message boards at that time, and he was, someone that we all looked up to, but he was taking the time to talk to us online. And so I've always really liked his art, always been really inspired by it. And then he was just a super nice guy. I met him a couple times when Travel was working there. And him and Richard Friend, the inker, were really, really nice to me and really supportive of me. So always a fan of anything Lee Bermejo does. I do kind of miss when he was doing his own colors, like some of his very early work. He was doing this kind of blocky color style, and then he leaned more into doing the ink washes and letting other people color it. But man, he's just continue to like get more and more intense with his art, and it's cool. This was probably the one that I was most excited about, is this piece by Ryan Hughes. And if you follow the channel at all, I'm a huge fan of Ryan Hughes's novel that came out about a year ago called XX. And it was really, really cool to see this piece where he was doing all the art and see him dealing with all of the same themes of modernism versus postmodernism, both philosophically, societally, and then just in design as well. And you see a lot of the same tricks that he plays in XX show up in this comic, where he's using fonts to represent characters, and not just the characters, but the whole philosophical system that character represents. So this is like postmodernism comes in and it's destroying Gotham because it's breaking down, and he goes through like legit philosophical semiotics. He's talking about Derrida. He's talking about I'm going to blank on the other guy's name that he mentioned, but he mentions a couple of philosophers in here, postmodernist linguists and stuff like that, and how they're intentionally, he's casting them as a villain, I think, and that seems to be in a lot of his books. He's combating postmodernism. I think he loves the tools of postmodernism, as do most artists, because it opened up a toolbox for us. But I think he's also aware, and this story is talking about it, of the destructive consequences of when this moves into the public sphere, when your ability to communicate with each other completely breaks down because you've questioned language and you've questioned symbolism and meaning so far that you wind up in a society that's post-truth, fake news. Like, you just, every foundation that you have has been undermined, and that's what this story is about in 8 pages. So this is the one story that really stuck with me, and he puts that all into his art so well. He even has the Bat Cave here, and he as a postmodernist would do, he breaks down like the structure of the whole thing. Archetypes, underlying structure, subplot, narrative, subtext, hidden exegesis, stream of consciousness. He's like exposing the structure, which is maybe part of the positive part of postmodernism, is you really understand the structure thoroughly. But then he has this bit here. Here's Saussure. That's the other person he mentioned. Knowledge itself will be lost. Books will be full of gibberish. Peace treaties unreadable, laws moot, even art would be a meaningless parade of abstract incomprehensibility. And then Batman pulls out the bee, which is like, again, like postmodernism in comics. Precisely, the quantum pixelization of the universe is becoming apparent, and he pulls out the R. And then you've reached the plank, and the text goes sideways, and Robin's grabbing the balloon. We've reached the Planck level at the substratum of cognitive semantics. The very substrate of existential phenomenology is breaking down. We're becoming universal, simple shapes on pulped wood substrate. So another postmodernist thing, like, hey, I'm not Batman, I'm just ink on paper. And he breaks it down into a binary choice, black or white, good or evil, which a postmodernist would rebel against. And then you just abstraction and loss of language. And then he says retro is really the only way to defeat postmodernism. So he pulls out a ray gun and zaps the guy. And then, he goes on from there. And so he's immune from this Derridian deconstructionalist havoc. And he refers to Damien Hirst. So this is really fun, really smart. It does have all the retro vibes that he's so fond of. He's obviously just a extremely intelligent, well-educated guy, and a really phenomenal writer. I mean, this is probably actually more dense, even though XX is like that big. XS is almost a breezier read in my mind. I mean, it's heavy with the philosophy as well. But man, I'm just a huge Ryan Hughes fan. I probably talk about that one all day, so I'm gonna keep going. For that alone, I'm happy I have this book. So Mike Allred, it's really cool to see Mike Allred in black and white. Again, it reinforces what I've been seeing, where it's like if he wasn't doing superheroes, he would be a well-renowned Fantagraphics artist. So I think he deserves more credit. Dustin Nguyen is an artist that I like some of the stuff that he's done. Sometimes he gets a little loose, but I always like him as a designer. And I think this page shows that, this cool car scene that breaks down into this abstraction. The book's bound a little tight, so unfortunately it breaks up the fact that this is a double page spread. It almost puts it into 2 pieces. But when you see the thing as a whole, it's a really fun piece of design. Paolo Rivera, here's another guy who's doing like black, white, and a couple grays, but it looks like he's doing it as a separate drawing, a separate ink drawing, and then scanning them in, putting them in. And I like that. I like that look. If you're gonna add a gray, like, I think that looks a lot better than computer coloring. Or even if you were gonna do computer coloring, just use 1 or 2 flat grays. So like that. I always have liked Paolo Rivera's art. I've seen a lot of stuff. And then Javier Pulido is another guy that I've seen a number of things from that almost has, I don't know, something, there's something like kind of older about his style, I guess, that's really interesting. And then, so it's cool to see him in black and white, but I do think I like him in color more, because there, every time I've seen his stuff colored, it's always these really nice flat colors that work real well with art. But what's interesting about this is to see that it was written by Keith Giffen, and that's funny to me because me and Sean had looked at that Keith Giffen stuff that was accused of ripping off Jose Munoz, and this has a lot of the Jose Munoz. Someone who was in that. The first time I saw Jose Munoz was actually in Batman Black and White Volume One. But like the thin lines with these weird blocked in like little chunks of black, I think those work better in with color on them too. So it's interesting to see Keith Giffen working with someone who has that style, because he obviously liked the style enough that he got accused of ripping it off. And, you know, me and Sean looked at it and it looked like he was straight up swiping, but this almost feels kind of Munoz-y. So it's fun to see him cycle back around to that. He obviously still loves it. This story is by Chris Weston. This is another guy that really influenced me early on, especially with the way that he did his hatching, like the kind of Brian Boland hatching, moving around a surface. I was a big fan of that for a long time. It wasn't until Strange Death that I started to dislike that look. So when I look at this now, I don't like it as much as I would have, you know, maybe 8 years ago or something like that. It feels a little clogged up to me now. But I still really like Chris Weston's art. You know, things like this real Brian Boland vibe are awesome. And this is a fun kind of meta story where she's sitting here drawing. And I do still really like Chris Weston's art. Like, this is a hell of a page right here. And he's someone that influenced me to just go into like being crazy detailed and get every wrinkle and all that kind of stuff. Andrew Robinson, someone who's been around for a while. I think he's kind of a precursor to like the Sean Gordon Murphy and all of the, what do they call themselves? The Inky Knuckle guys, where it's kind of like a combination of American comics and manga. I like that he's using the tone patterns in here. So he's someone I've liked for a long time. Cool to see him working in black and white. This is Dave Taylor. When I was looking at it, I was thinking, man, this almost looks like, I don't know, it's very European to me. Kind of Moebius-y. Like, some of these faces are kind of Moebius-y, and the tech is very Moebius-y. But it's cool to see Dave Taylor. I remember him doing a Superman Batman World's Finest like prestige series that I picked up as a kid that had a very different feel to it at the time, and I remember that being intriguing to me. I don't know influential is the right word, but intriguing. So it's cool to see more Dave Taylor. It's cool to see it in the black and white and see that European influence. That's one of the things I really liked about the first volume, is it seemed really multinational. I don't know. This one doesn't feel that way to me. It seems like they're getting a lot of Hispanic artists in this one. But other than that, I don't know how many more international ones there are. Adam Hughes, Adam Hughes is one of those guys that was just so important to me as a kid, and as I get older, I just don't like his art as much. I think, like Travis Charest, he's become too polished. Like his early Wonder Woman covers, still there's something about that appeals to me. Not as much as it used to, but that was really influential stuff on me. And now I look at this and it's just like, it's too airbrushed and too polished and too worked over, especially for a black and white book. Like, I know he can render really well in pen and ink, so I don't know, just some of this stuff. And I've never really liked his interiors since he did that X-Men Wildcat. That's probably the last time I liked him on interiors. I always get excited every time I pick up an Adam Hughes book, and then I start looking at it and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember I don't like him on interiors. And this kind of confirms that for me. It's too worked over for this type of book. It doesn't even look like it reproduced well. It looks like everything got too dark. So I don't know, that was kind of disappointing. And then Dave Johnson. It's always cool to see Dave Johnson doing interiors. He's someone else who, you stick him on covers, it's going to be amazing every time. Cool to see him on interiors. You know, and he's someone that will kind of intentionally make the dots too big and stuff for design purposes. I mean, to me, it looks kind of funny, but he has that style where things are kind of the production aspects are in your face, and that works really good on covers. And the story, I don't know, it might be kind of big and distracting for me, but cool to see Dave Johnson as well. I remember really liking him as a kid. So this is a really cool book. Like I said, stories, not so much, but all of the art is like any of these Batman Black and White. You just kind of sit here and get inspired and want to try all these different things. So I would definitely pick it up. You know, just it's DC production. It's not the best, but it's, you know, it's pretty good. So one of the best ways that you can support what we're doing here on the channel is to support the books that Sean's putting out through Living the Line. The first book that he put out is The Strange Death of Alex Raymond. It's a collaboration between Dave Sim and myself. The book was recently nominated for an Eisner Award in the Best Reality-Based category. It's a deep dive into the artwork and methods of Alex Raymond and the mystery surrounding his death in a car crash. So if you haven't grabbed that already, please do. There's also Yokoyama Yuichi's Plaza, which is a totally intense manga by an artist who has somehow figured out how to distill manga down to its purest essence. This book was successfully funded on Kickstarter, but if you missed the Kickstarter, you can order it through any comic store, any bookstore, Amazon, any place that you would normally get your graphic novels from. The Abolition of Man is a 5-issue mini-series done by myself and Sean in collaboration with the Midjourney AI. What you're seeing here is the cover to issue 1 and the first couple pages of issue 1. This first issue, we fed it an essay by C.S. Lewis, and this is just the imagery that the computer spat back at us. Issues 2 and 3 are a narrative, starting with the story that I wrote when I was 21, and then Sean's going to write issue 3, picking up where I left off. In this one, I'm kind of trying to force the AI to give me the images I want, and then doing some tweaking in Photoshop to get these kind of colored looks on it. For issue 4, we're turning the task of writing over to the AI as well. So the AI has written the script, and then we've just put that into the Midjourney AI, and it's turned out art. The script and the art is some of the absolutely most horrific stuff I've ever seen. We're a bit scared to even publish this issue. And I don't have any art to show for it yet, but Sean and I have decided to do a 5th issue of Abolition as well, because we have someone who we're really excited to have on board, providing an essay for that 5th issue that will illustrate, and we'll announce more about that soon. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.